We had a lot of fun up there, and before I begin, I've said this many times. I just want to thank my scouting staff. I get to come out up here and talk about these guys, and but the reality of it is, I mean, there's so much work that goes into this. It's a year-long process, and we start back in May, and it goes all the way through the draft, and we certainly had the outcome that we were looking for tonight, and we're really ecstatic about it. But again, it really goes all back to the scouting staff I have. I mean, they're just a great group of guys, and they were super excited. Talk about our 3 picks tonight in the second round with the 56th pick, McCole Hardman from Georgia. And then we came back shortly after at 263 with Juan Thornhill. And then our final pick of the night, 384, was for Kalen Saunders. And all 3 of these guys are really, really good football players. And had you told me before the night started we'd end up with these 3 players, I wouldn't have believed it, because we had all 3 of these guys, high twos, and to get 2 of them into, and then to have the Saunders kid fall to 3, we were really surprised that he was still on the board. He was a guy that was in the mix at 63. So again, all 3 of these players should come in here and provide an immediate impact, and should see the field soon. Certainly with McCole, I mean, everyone knows about his speed, his return ability. Juan is a guy that can play all over the field. He actually started out corner, but then they moved him to safety. He can play down in the nickel. He can play some sub linebacker at times. He is a chess piece for Coach Spags, and then you can't have enough of athletic DTs, and that defensive line now. We were looking at our 2-deep roster, and you had Frank Clark, and then you had a Saunders, and then an Ogba in the offseason, and Okafor, and Chris Jones, and Derek Nottie, and Breland Speaks, and Tano, and we looked at that defensive line right after the draft, and we were all smiling. So, again, it was a great night. Thanks again to the coaching staff for their input throughout the process, certainly ownership and Clark and Mark Donovan, all their support they've given us. But, again, credit goes to my scouting staff for their help with that. So, with that, I'll take your questions.
With Thornhill, just defensively, how do you feel he fits in the scheme of versatility that we go along with the secondary that's kind of just rebuilding around Honey Badger?
Yeah, so Juan is again very versatile. He can do a lot of different things for you, and we have we have some really good safeties, and but these guys we have, I think the knack that they have is kind of down low. The Honey Badger kind of said in his press conference, he feels like Superman the closer he is to the football. Armani Watts had a lot of those traits, and Dan is a guy that had played down a lot. Lucas is a guy that has some range back there, but I think Juan gives you a true free safety, center fielder, and he has tremendous ball skills and range on the back end. So I think this really gives you a free safety with playmaking skills back there that can take the football away. But he can also slide down and cover some in the slot, and I think he'll be a really good cover piece against some athletic tight ends that we'll see throughout the course of our season.
Why did you find necessary to trade up for McCole?
Yeah, so when we were looking at the board, I think we were sitting there at 61, and it was funny because we had a lot of action, a lot of phone calls at 61. And we were looking at the board, and again, never going to pass up speed. And when you looked at the wideouts, there were still a lot of good wideouts left, but none that ran 4.27. So, we got approached for a 5th-round pick. I think it was the Rams, a small move, and the teams that were picking before us, we didn't think that they'd go wide out, but I thought there are a few teams that might want to trade up and get in because we had taken a lot of calls. And so we ended up making the move, and then we came back at 63 and called those teams back that were calling us at 61, and they said they weren't interested in trading anymore. So I think we kind of played those cards right, and then scouts talk, and sure enough, those teams had said they were looking at Hardman too. So I think we made the right calculated guess there. You kind of see how the board's fallen and how those wideouts are falling.
Andy said he might be the best return in the class. Did Dave agree? I know Dave does some of that.
Yeah, no, Dave had the biggest smile in the room. We actually there was a few returners that we had Dave go out, and he does that every year. He came back and he said, McCole he thought was the closest thing to Devin Hester that he'd seen in a long time. So he was ecstatic, and he's by far the best punt and kick returner in the draft. And again, it's hard to turn down that kind of speed when you have a quarterback like Pat Mahomes. You want to give him as many weapons as possible.
Was there any consideration to trade up and make any picks before you decided to trade up to get McCole?
No, I thought that, and credit to Brant Tillis and Chris Shea, because they kind of work the phones, and I'm not as smart as those guys, and they can compute the numbers a lot faster than I can. I'll have to sit there and add and subtract, and those guys will just say, yeah, good value, this and that. But no, those guys do a great job. But the reality of it is at 61 and 63, and not having a 4. The 4 was kind of the pick that would get you a little higher than what you wanted. But knowing we didn't have a 4 and we only had a 5, there was only it was only a certain level we can get to, unless you wanted to sacrifice 2020 picks, which we didn't want to do. We wanted to really just keep our picks next year. And there was some talk going back and forth about if you wanted to surrender a 2020 third or fourth. That certainly could have got us a lot higher, but we weren't willing to do that. And then we knew that if we wanted to make a move, the 5th round can only get us 5 to 6, 7 spots, and that was probably all we were willing to do.
So what's left now?
Yeah, I mean, we'll sit and listen. As you know, every year there's a lot of late round picks and free agents that make your team every year, and so the 4th round will be obviously a little slow for us, but we'll just monitor the board and we'll continue to track the guys we like. And this is a unique time though in the draft because once you get into the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds, I mean, teams, boards across the league, they really vary in regards to some guys, will get picked in the 5th round that we have free agents, and some guys we pick in the 5th round, other teams will have free agents. So just when you think, well, you don't pick to the 6th round, there'll be a guy that we have on our board late 4, early 5, that by the time we're picking in 6, they'll be there. So the 4th round will be slow, but once we get into the early to mid 5th round, I think we'll start to, our attention will kind of perk up a little, and we'll get excited again.
You got 2 in the 6th, 1 in the
2 in the 6th, 1 in the 7th, yep.
You had said last week that your favorite part of the draft or aspect of the draft was after Thursday night, kind of regrouping for Friday.
Yeah.
Were you surprised at kind of the run on positions early today?
No, yeah.
Or is that kind of what you expected?
No, yeah. Again, that's why I think I started the intro with, the credit to my scouting staff. I mean, the board fell. I mean, just like we thought, and the corners. Listen, we wanted to get a corner, and we had all those corners that went. We had them as 2nd round type values. And one of the things we talked about with the Frank Clark trade was, where we're picking, we had maybe 14 to 15 guys valued as 1st round talent, right? So when you're picking 30, there's a chance that if you don't trade up, or if you trade back, or let's just say you hold your position there, you might be taking a guy that you have a 2nd round value on. But we had those corners valued kind of right where they went, and we knew when the day started that it would be really hard to get all the way to the top of 2 because, as I mentioned, we didn't have a 4th round pick, so the 5th can only get you so high. But the board kind of went just kind of like we thought. I think the one surprise was that Saunders was still available, and we had him kind of right in that mid 2 to low 2 level, and the fact that he fell to 3, we were kind of like, wow. I mean, there was a big gap when we were picking in that 3rd round, and he was the highest name on the board. So that was a pleasant surprise for us, and I know Coach Daly was happy, and Spags was happy. So that was a lot of fun to end the night like that.
What did you expect from Juan? Like that aspect you can't teach as far as football is.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I think you guys saw the basketball highlights. I mean, he's just a natural athlete, but he has great eyes and great vision back there, and natural knack to take the football away. He sees things develop quickly. He's able to quickly read and react. And again, aside from that, this is a guy that played corner, I think, his first 2 years, and then they kind of moved him all over the field. So there was a lot in his plate at Virginia, and I think he is a great addition. We have numbers at our safety position, but there's not a lot of pure free safeties that can come down and cover like Juan can. So I just think the ability to kind of move him around the field was something that was really attractive. And he was another guy too that, I mean, where we got him, pick 63. I don't think a lot of us before the night started would have thought that he would have been there at 63 too. So he was a guy that probably fell a little bit lower than we thought too.
In regard to Hardman, where's he at development-wise as a receiver?
Yeah. So, at Georgia, they run the football a lot. And so there are some technical aspects that I think, he needs to work on. And, the stats, again, aren't similar to a team, someone that played at a passing offense like a Texas Tech or an Oklahoma. But I think you see all the skills that you need to see. I mean, he is smooth in and out of breaks. He has great transitional quickness, and then he can just run. I mean, you can't coach speed. I mean, you can coach a lot of things, and our coaching staff does a great job of getting receivers and getting the most out of them. But at the end of the day, you can either run or you can't run, and he can he has something that you can't coach. So his ability to take a simple bubble screen 80, 90 yards is exciting. His ability to flip field positions on the kick return game and the punt return game is exciting. So I'm sure Coach Reed will have a lot of fun with him.
All right. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks.